people in Ghouta on the outskirts of the Syrian capital are used to living in a war zone, but today thousands are making the decision to get out. The region is home to about 400,000 people. With that, let's bring in Natasha Fatah, who's tracking the exodus. Natasha.
Michael, they're making the decision to get out because they finally received the opportunity to get out. Now, this is after we're hearing from SANA, the national news agency, that in fact, the Syrian regime has been able to take control of a series of areas in and around eastern Ghouta. This is after 2 weeks of non-stop bombardment in the area. Now, we've just moments ago heard from the Syrian regime, specifically from the Syrian president Bashar al-Assad, and he said they're going to continue their operation while they're bombing out what they describe as the terrorists and the Islamists on the ground so that the people of Ghouta can get out. Now remember that this area has been controlled by people who are described as rebels for the past 7 years while the civil war has been going on. Some have described them as Islamists, as members of the al-Nusra Front, which is linked to al-Qaeda. Certainly the Syrian regime sees those rebels that way. Others have said, no, these are just rebels who don't want to be controlled by an oppressive regime. Wherever the truth may lie, there are still 400,000 people who live in this area who have not had access to clean drinking water, any food, medical supplies, even electricity. They have essentially forced 400,000 people underground because, as you can see from the pictures, their homes, their places of worship, their places of work have just been leveled. That's despite the fact that just last week, the UN Security Council brought in a ceasefire, asked for all the involved parties to stop the bombing and the shelling. Nobody has stopped, but now there is some space, and so we understand that thousands have fled their homes. They're going westward where there's slightly less fighting and a possibility for some safety.
So people are trying to get out, but aid is not getting in. What's stopping this all?
Well, it's the ongoing violence. And again, we've heard from the United Nations today. They say they've got anywhere from 40 to 45 trucks filled with food, with water, with medical supplies desperately needed for the people inside Ghouta, but they can't get in, and they say they will not go in. They might try to get some of those supplies to some of the affected areas by tomorrow. So if there are people in Ghouta, and we know that they are, desperately waiting for those supplies to come in, they're going to have to wait a little bit longer.